Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with Game 9 of the 2018 World Championship match between Carlsen and Caruana. And the day started with a bit of a shock when Magnus Carlsen posted this picture on Instagram. With the caption, "The match is heating up." He played football on the rest day and apparently he had a clash of heads with one of the other players and that led to this injury around his eye. He wore a plaster during the game and here we see the handshake before Game 9. Let's get into it. It was played on the 21st of November 2018. White Carlsen, black Caruana. c4 for the second time in the match. Carlsen plays c4 on the first move. He has played d4 twice, e4 once and now c4 for the second time. Carlsen shows his range. e5, the same first move as in Game 4 and in fact let's go through the first number of moves quite quickly because the players followed what happened in Game 4. Bishop g2, we really have a dragon Sicilian with reversed colors and the same rare move Bishop c5 which we also saw in Game 4. Caruana played this once before against Wesley So in the Paris Grand Chess Tour in a blitz game, and Alexander Grishuk, one of the commentators I follow for this match, played it in 2017 in a game with classical time control in the Geneva Grand Prix. Knight b6 is the main move, dealing with the surprise attack of knight takes e5, after which the knight on d5 is attacked twice by just playing that knight away to b6, as Grandmaster Saruman explained in the broadcast on the St. Louis Chess Club YouTube channel. So bishop c5, Carlsen's team had some time to study this move and to find the best response. Both players castled, d3 still following Game 4, rook e8, and here bishop d2 was played in Game 4, and here came the new move that Carlsen's team had thought up, bishop g5. There's only one game in the database with this move and that was played by a player with a rating of 2195, so a player not even at master level. The bishop is attacking black's queen, so f6 makes sense, but then knight takes d5, queen takes d5, and then bishop back to d2. Now white has lured the black queen to d5 in the firing line of bishop g2, and white has some ideas of knight g5 with a discovered attack on the queen and then queen b3 on the diagonal of the king. Still playable for black, but Caruana did not want to go for it. He took on c3. In a normal dragon Sicilian, where black plays the dragon, white usually does not like to take on c6, as it gives black another pawn close to the center. So the same applies here. After knight takes c3, Carlsen now has more control over d4. So it's a small concession from black, small concession from Caruana. Now f6 was played and the bishop went back to c1. Carlsen thinks that his bishop belongs on b2. Played instantly, so Carlsen was still in his preparation. Bishop e6 from Caruana, very logical, with a possible queen d7 and bishop h3 to try and swap white's best piece, which is the bishop on g2. Bishop b2, signaling that he wants to play d3, d4. Bishop b6, anticipating d4 and blocking also the half-open b file in case ever a rook gets on b1. d4 from Carlsen and bishop d5 after a 30-minute think. One of black's ideas is to set up a blockade on the light squares with the maneuver knight a5, knight c4, blocking the light squares and setting up his defense that way. Queen c2, again instantly played by Carlsen, and Caruana took on d4. Grandmaster Peter Leko explained that usually you don't want to take on d4 as you give white the center after c takes d4. White now has two pawns in the center and black has none. Bishop e4, very concrete play from Caruana, hitting the queen, queen b3 check, and now queen d5 is a move, after which white can play e3. But Caruana played bishop d5 to shield the check. Attacking the queen again, of course we can get a move repetition after queen c2, bishop e4, queen b3 check, but Carlsen played queen d1. Caruana now decided to give up the bishop pair. He took on f3. He explained in a press conference why he took this decision. He was low on time and wanted to simplify. Carlsen played queen b3 check as an in-between move, king h8, and now he took with the bishop. Caruana decides he is playing for 2 results, saying that he can draw this game, saying that he recognizes he's in Carlsen's preparation and that he wants to clarify the situation, as Grandmaster Sarwan explains. Black can now win that central pawn on d4, knight takes, and Carlsen really also has to part with his bishop pair, and we get a middle game with opposite colored bishops on the board. Queen takes, e3, queen to e5, and white takes his pawn back on b7. Attacking the rook. Rook went to d8, rook ad1, and queen e7. Caruana was down an hour on the clock at this stage. Carlsen said after the game that he was really content with the outcome of the opening, saying that white cannot really hope for more. White's pawn structure is better and also his bishop is better. This bishop on b6 is quite a lousy piece, as one of the commentators said. But it's hard to find a better home for that bishop. Here bishop c6 was looked at in one of the broadcasts to take away the option of playing c7 c5 for black, but Carlsen decided on h4 and he was very unhappy with this move after the game. Caruana played g6, and as Carlsen now was afraid that black would play h5 and f5, as he explained after the game in the press conference, he played h5 himself. That move was criticized by many of the commentators, saying it was a rushed decision. Normally you optimize the position of your pieces with king g2, rook h1 before pushing h5. So Carlsen is not showing his normal patient approach. As mentioned, Carlsen did not think h5 was the mistake. He thought h4 on the move b4 was a mistake and gave away most of his advantage. Caruana took on h5, queen c4, stopping the h5 h4 move and planning king g2 and rook h1. If white can win that pawn on h5, he has a large advantage because of the pawn structure, and it could be that Carlsen missed black's next move, because this move f6 f5 is a very strong move. Now the move h4 is unstoppable, as the queen now also covers the h4 square. And black's problems are largely over. Bishop f3 from Carlsen, there comes h4, and Carlsen first took on d8, and that is quite important, as Grandmaster Ashley explained. If after h4 you do not swap a pair of rooks but take on h4 straight away, then rook g8 check, and the very natural move king h1 actually loses. King h2 less logical on the dark square, while black has the bishop of the dark squares, is still okay for white. But why does white lose after king h1? Well, because of f4. And now queen takes h4 is a big threat. So white has to take on f4, but then rook df8, the rook that was not swapped, and it's hitting white's queen, so queen e4, but then rook takes f3 wins. If you take the queen, then it's checkmate on h3, and if you take the rook, then queen takes h4 check, and you have to interpose the queen, and this is also checkmate. So white has to be careful. Let's go back. This was after h4 and then g takes h4, rook g8 check, and then king h1. King h2, as I mentioned, is okay for white. And what's the difference? Well, let's look at the line. f4, queen takes, rook attacks the queen, queen e4, and this is okay for white. You cannot take on f3 because then white just takes the queen on e7 and there is no checkmate on h3 with the king on h2. So that is why Carlsen swapped a pair of rooks. Rook takes d8, rook takes d8, and only now took on h4. Rook g8 check, king stepped aside, and queen f6. Grandmaster Geary predicted this move. The queen is very pretty on the long diagonal, he said. And Grandmaster Fiedler said that any half-decent move from black is good enough for equality. Not much is going on anymore. Carlsen played queen f4, bishop c5. Fiedler said that white now needs to bail out. If he's not careful, he could get worse with the bishop coming to d6. He needs to stop fooling around, as being mated on the h-file is not very pleasant, says Fiedler. For example, taking the pawn on c7 is not possible because of bishop d6. Nice move. Attacking the queen, queen c4, but then f4, cutting off the queen from the king side. Queen d4, it looks like you can swap the queens, but no you can't, because bishop e5 and black wins. So white has to be careful. After bishop c5, Carlsen played rook g1, bailing out, rook takes, king takes, and bishop d6 from Caruana, and Carlsen played queen a4, going after the a7 pawn, but black will get the h4 pawn. f4, played after a long think. He was probably checking what would happen after white would play e4. But then queen takes h4, and this is also equal. Carlsen did not play e4, he took on a7, f takes, queen takes, and now he took on h4. Caruana had calculated that he's not going to get mated on the light squares after taking this pawn. It looks a bit scary. For example, queen c3 check, king g8, bishop d5 check, king f8 only move, queen check, king e7, another check, king d8, but black is not going to get checkmated. This position is still even. But Caruana had to calculate all that. So he took on h4, Carlsen played a4, trying to create some play with his a-pawn. Queen takes a4 as possible, but Caruana played it safe and played queen f6. Bishop d1 from Carlsen. If you play a5, there's queen a1 check, picking up the pawn on a5 because of the double attack, like this. So, as said, bishop d1 was played. Queen e5, the queens came off the board, and this endgame is a dead draw. Well, not dead. The grandmasters Grishuk, Svidler and Geary showed lots of variations here. I'm sure you and I would lose this position against one of them, or Carlsen or Caruana, within a handful of moves. But at grandmaster level, this is an easy draw. a5, king g7, a6, bishop d4, king g2, king f6, and f4. Svidler said black should put the pawn on h6 and the bishop on b6 and just chill. Caruana indeed put his bishop on b6, king f3, h6, he had heard Svidler, king e4, bishop a7, bishop g4, bishop g1, staying on that diagonal, and Carlsen is bringing his king to support the a-pawn. Bishop b6, king c6, bishop e3, attacking the f4 pawn, king b7, and you can now not take the f4 pawn because of a7, and the next move is a8 queen. So after king b7, Caruana went back to b6, bishop h3. The white bishop has to keep the king out of f5 to make sure that pawn will not be taken. Bishop back to e3, and if you now play a7, then there is bishop takes, king takes, c5. The only move that holds a draw, bishop f1, king f5, king b6, king takes, and white cannot win this game anymore. He only has a bishop left. Black also cannot win because this pawn will be taken by the bishop whenever it comes onto a light square. So after bishop e3, a7 does not win for white. Carlsen went back with the king. He's running out of ideas. Bishop b6, king d5, bishop a7, king e4. Caruana just waits. A few more moves were made. Bishop f1, king e6, a check, king back, bishop back, and king e6. And Carlsen looked at Caruana, and both players shook hands. And this 9th game of the World Championship match also ended in a draw. And here we see the handshake after the game. And confirmation that we have now 9 draws in the table. The score is 4.5, 4.5 with 3 classical games to go. Caruana will be white in 2 of them. The picture is from the press conference after game 9. Caruana seemed in a good mood, but Carlsen was not. He was annoyed that he let his advantage slip. Carlsen said, "I was very happy with the opening. You cannot expect much more than what I got. In the ending, h4 is a mistake. I should play king g2 and bishop f3. I felt I could not get everything I wanted. If I don't play h5 after g6, then black will play h5 and f5, and I don't see how I make progress. Black is just too solid. In the end, I was hoping black would play h5. Then I have a target to play on. But as we saw, Caruana kept his pawn on h6. Then he was asked, were you in pain during the game because of your injury? And Carlsen answered with one word, which was no. Then he was asked, is this your best game of the match? And that journalist also got a one-word answer, which was no. Caruana said, I did not feel totally comfortable. I wanted it to be more concrete, so I went for the opposite color bishop position. I was low on time, it was easier to play when it's simplified. G takes h5 was not a difficult decision as I get counterplay and white's king is also less safe. And when he was asked about Thanksgiving, what was he thankful for? He said, I'm very thankful to my team. The team he has around him, helping him with this World Championship match. Game 10 will be played on Thursday, the 22nd of November. Caruana will have the white pieces. I will be here after the game to tell you what happened. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel and please leave a comment. If you liked the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.